we know this topic can seem a little esoteric, and not everyone sort of understands the plumbing. And so just to begin, to ground the conversation, I've asked Joel to give his sort of elevator pitch on what blockchain is, and maybe we'll have some shared definitions after that. And then we're just going to dive into some great topics. So Joel, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So it's a very complex kind of architecture and structure. A blockchain is, one way to describe it is it's a decentralized database. It's been called a decentralized ledger, and all of those things are involved in very complex math and cryptography and networking components that are very technical. But the most important thing to understand about blockchain and what it does and what's different about it from everything else that we've had in the past is that blockchains as a kind of database allow us to create digital scarcity. And that's really important because up until now, whenever we digitize something, say a document, we turned it into a PDF, there was no way to ensure that there's only one copy of that PDF that one person has. Because if I send you a PDF over email, I've sent you a copy of that file and I retain a copy of that file. What Bitcoin really introduced that was novel to the world was the ability to create something that's digital, a Bitcoin, that you can provably ensure that there is a single one of those in the world. So there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be created, and once we get to that point, we can, the blockchain allows us to trust that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin and not anymore. And what that enables us to do, one step further, is to create really programmable money or programmable assets. And that opens a whole world of possibility, because in the past, assets tied to the real world, they're really rooted in our physical reality. And they're scarce, and because they're scarce, they're valuable. So gold is valuable because there's a limited amount of gold. It's really difficult to create value that only exists within the digital realm if you don't have a way to make a digital asset scarce, and that's what a blockchain allows us to do. And the way that a blockchain allows us to do that is by replicating the ledger, the database that keeps track of who owns what across thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of computers around the world. And that makes it such that every person who plugs their computer into a blockchain is able to see the balance and the holdings of every person in that network, which allows the entire network to make sure that not more of the asset is created over time. And the really beautiful thing, going back to the digital scarcity point, is that we can program these things. Now that we can create assets that are digital and provably scarce, they're also programmable. And that allows us to build the kinds of networks that we're building today with things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Filecoin and so on.
Great, thank you. So that's a little bit of the what, and I think we could spend days talking about how and really digging into the machinery of it. I don't think that's the right use of our time here. What I'm interested in is why. You guys put a lot of effort and time into working in this field, becoming experts. It's somewhat controversial and niche. And the people I talk to, they all have sort of a eureka moment or like a light bulb moment with it. So maybe it'd be illustrated for you, Wendy or Brittany, share like what was that moment like, and why are you really passionate about this space?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that became very clear when I started talking to people in the space earlier on, and actually Joel was one of them, was that now you get to have a blank playing field with recreating different markets of goods and services being exchanged, but setting forth a set of rules that everyone has to abide by. And those rules can sort of be defined outset, and without sort of anyone having the ability to change those rules, see what happens with the economic system. And what's kind of happened since with a lot of these networks and sets of rules is that there is this early sort of anticipatory value, speculative value, if you will, that gets created that helps people come together on the supply side and supply really valuable goods and services. And then over time, a whole new way of distributing value gets created in a market. And I think that's pretty revolutionary if you think about it, because traditionally you have sort of people who create the goods, who sell them, and then they take a margin on that. And that whole thing gets disrupted by a blockchain model. I'm being kind of vague here, but I'll just bring it down sort of to earth for a second. Imagine a social media kind of database / network where when you add value to it by posting content or creating content or curating it, you earn back in tokens the value that you create. And then an advertiser wants to buy the attention you've generated in this network. They buy the tokens to advertise, to push their content up to the front. So it's a fully self-sustaining ecosystem or business network that doesn't require, a middleman to dictate the rules, because that's kind of defined up front by the community. And so that's kind of, the exciting part to me, the different behaviors that incentivizes people to, experiment with in real time. And to many, I think this is sort of like behavioral economic experiments happening in real time, accelerated with real money, some of these projects.
Yeah, I guess just adding to that, so Joel and I actually worked together at Union Square Ventures, and the first day we saw a bunch of blockchain projects. I think we saw 7 one day. One of those was Coinbase, so we decided to invest in Coinbase as an early investor, USV, but I think these 6 other projects were kind of crypto anarchists as part of it. So people thinking about, well, we don't like the way that the internet is being ruled, so we want to create this alternative way that we can create an ecosystem. And it really got me thinking about the empowering the edges, like where are there people who can't do what they want to do because there's gatekeepers online who prevent them from doing that. It may not be as directly personally relevant in the developed world, but in the developing world, if you don't have identity, or you can't leave your country, or you can't bank because of who you are, or what gender you are, or what age you are, those types of keys are actually unlocked by using the internet as a medium for that. And blockchain creates a lot of opportunity to create new ecosystems and new ideas that don't have to fit into existing standards. So I think that kind of empowerment of the edges, we see it economically, we see it in terms of the technology, and that's like a really exciting space to just think about what can come out of this when there are no rules of how you can kind of engage with the internet.
Great, thank you.